Next, I want to talk about psychodramatic letter writing and psychodramatic journaling. So these are also really useful interventions for somebody new to facilitating psychodramas. Psychodramatic letter writing and journaling are really simple and a really good starting place for starting to implement psychodrama interventions. Psychodramatic letter writing is essentially where we instruct a client or the group to write a letter from themselves to another part of themselves or another version of themselves in the past or future, or to somebody else in their life. So they're imagining that they're sending a letter to someone or to a part of themselves. Psychodramatic letter writing can be really powerful for helping clients express unexpressed emotions, tapping into a sense of closure, expressing things that they just couldn't express in real life, such as anger or shame or guilt or sadness or love or gratitude. Psychodramatic letter writing can be really useful for working through grief and loss. In psychodramatic letter writing, we can also take the process a bit further by having the client write a letter to themselves from another part of themselves, or from another version of themselves, or from somebody else in their life. And you can often start with writing a letter from yourself to someone else, and then as a second letter, facilitate the role reversal through writing, where they're writing a letter in response from that other person to themselves. So I find this to be really useful for grief and loss, for forgiveness, for deepening relationships, for tapping into support and strengths, spirituality, and archetypal roles. For example, if I have a client whose goal is to deepen their relationship with God or their higher power, I could ask them to write a letter to their higher power, asking questions and expressing feelings that they have towards their higher power or God. And then once they complete that exercise, I could ask them to now write a letter from God to themselves, a letter that they wish they could receive, expressing all the messages that they crave to hear from God. Another way of using it is with grief and loss. Many of the clients that I work with have experienced traumatic loss, and oftentimes these are really sudden and unexpected losses. And the client walks away from this loss feeling a sense of guilt or shame, or just feeling like it's really unresolved for them and that they have no way of resolving it. So when the client's ready to do the grief and loss work, I might ask them to write a letter to the person that died, expressing all of their sadness and their self-blame and all their feelings, the things they didn't get a chance to say to that person before they actually died. And once they complete that letter, we'll process it and share about it and explore what came up for them as they wrote it. And then I might ask them to now write a second letter from the person who died to themselves, expressing all the things that they wish they could hear from that person, all the things that they need to hear in order to stop blaming themselves for the death, in order to have a sense of closure in the loss, in order to make meaning of that person's death and to heal from it. So this can be a really powerful intervention. Similar to psychodramatic letter writing is psychodramatic journaling. Psychodramatic journaling is where we have a client write a journal entry from a different role or a different part of themselves or the role of a different person, or even from the perspective of themselves at a different point in time. So, for example, I could ask a client to connect with a vision of themselves in the future in recovery from trauma, perhaps a year from now, and to write a journal entry from the perspective of themselves in the future in recovery from trauma a year from now. Write a journal entry at the end of a day, sharing and reflecting on the sense of meaning in their life today, a sense of purpose, the closeness and intimacy in their relationships, their sense of respect and strengths that they've tapped into within themselves. We could also use psychodramatic journaling to help a client develop a deeper sense of awareness or perspective of somebody else in their life. I could use it if a client were struggling to see things from the point of view of their partner. I could say, I want you to write a journal entry from the point of view of your wife about the conflict in your marriage. Write an entire page about how you think your wife experiences you and what her feelings and thoughts are on this conflict that you're working through with her. And that could be really illuminating for the client. We could also use it in trauma-focused ways. We could have the client revisit a moment in the past where they experienced trauma and write a journal entry from themselves in the past, expressing what they were feeling in that moment or feeling at that point in their life. Oftentimes, in the midst of childhood trauma especially, the child doesn't have a chance to work through those feelings, to express their feelings, to sort out and differentiate all the many feelings that they're having, or to have a healthy adult listen to them and validate their feelings. So psychodramatic journaling is an opportunity to do just that. There's lots of different ways that you can use journaling, psychodramatic journaling. You could do it for different parts of self. For example, if I have a client who is really ambivalent about going to treatment for their substance use, I could invite them to write 2 different psychodramatic journal entries. One from the perspective of the part of them that really does not want to go to treatment, and to put all of that into a journal entry. And another journal entry from the perspective of the part of them that really does want to go to treatment and knows that they need to. And this can help them work through internal conflicts and to differentiate different parts of themselves, to express what's been unexpressed. So you can use psychodramatic letter writing and journaling in one-to-one settings. It's really useful as homework in between sessions. You can use it in a group setting where you have everybody write a letter or a journal entry. You could use it, you can even modify it in shorter, simpler ways by describing it as a psychodramatic postcard instead of a letter. That way you're going to challenge the clients to keep it to just maybe 2 or 3 sentences, what's most important to say, rather than writing paragraphs and paragraphs or pages and pages and pages, which some clients will do if you give them this assignment. So it can be a really useful warm-up or introduction to psychodrama. It can also be really useful as the kind of action phase of a group. And you could invite participants who are willing to share their letters aloud, and then to engage in a group discussion about how the letter writing was for them. What emotions came up throughout the process? What are you taking away from this process? How was it helpful? How was it difficult? So psychodramatic letter writing and psychodramatic journaling, again, are really useful tools for newer practitioners to psychodrama, in that there's much less risk of re-traumatization or causing harm in using psychodramatic letter writing or journaling as compared to trying to facilitate a full psychodrama. It just provides us more control and containment in having it on pen and paper than acting it out.